Hello and welcome to an update of the to fluff or not to fluff experiment. I know it's been a little while, but you know, when you start off with just like 75 worms, it's kind of slow going and it needs time to, you know, to fill up and the worms to reproduce. So but that's okay. The material here feels good. And this is normally the type of castings that I like to see in my bin. They're flaky, really nice. We still have some bedding left. So I probably will be adding a bit more bedding because I do want the level to go higher. And I know these guys are reproducing because it's been going for a little bit. But because I am fluffing this bin, I can see what's going on here, whereas the other bin, I can only guess according to this. So hopefully that'll give me an approximate gauge to what's happening there. But this is where I fed last week. And let's see how these guys have done. Oh, well, you can see that they certainly have reproduced. That's what I like to see. Plenty of wormies from those 75, plenty of babies, right? Yeah, well, they love watermelon, so we know that. Okay, so we'll give them some food in this corner right here. So let me get the bedding together and feed them up. So I put down just a handful of paper and cardboard that I shred. You can shred it, you can rip it, or put it even in larger pieces. That's up to you. The experiment that I did with the Goldilocks proved that you can really put in your carbon material any which way you like. And then we're just going to cover this up with our castings and other bedding. Keep everything nice and moist. Now you saw that the watermelon was really moist, very wet. If it would have been drier, I would have put down moist bedding instead of dry because the bin is not wet at all. So I don't want it drying out. The AC is running and I don't want this material to dry out. I want it to keep its moisture level the way I like it. So if you have a wet running bin, then yeah, go ahead and put your bedding in dry. But if you have a rather dry running bin, then put all your material in wet. That way it'll keep the moisture level at optimal. Okay, so let me go over now to the bin that we don't fluff. So here is the bin that I don't fluff. It's also 14 gallon. It has the same amount of material. It's just that I don't work the material into, I put everything on top except for when I feed, then I pocket feed. But this bedding, I added to the other bin as well, the exact amount. But the other bedding, I worked over, turning it into the existing materials in the bin. Whereas this one, it was just moist bedding and I let it right on top. And you can see just by leaving it in on top that parts of it get dry. That's because the material is not actually being worked into the castings that are in here, keeping everything nice and moist. So something for you guys to think about. So since I'm not fluffing up the bin, I'm not going to do everything that I did in the other one. I'm just going to check and see how much of this watermelon these guys have eaten. Yeah, pretty much the skins. I can see the skins and some of the bedding, but we're really not going to disturb these guys. We're going to disturb them once when we're ready to harvest. And when we're ready to bring this experiment to a close, that's when we're going to see which bin has the most worms and better quality castings. So I'm just going to pocket feed in this area. So I created a little space. Again, I'm just going to grab a handful of bedding, just like I did in the other one. Lay it down here. Going to grab the wet melon. It's really nice and broken down. It was previously frozen. And of course, you don't have to freeze anything. I think it just helps. First, it helps to prevent fruit flies from taking over your bin. And it also helps the food break down faster for the worms. And now we're just going to take some of this bedding that we have on top and put it here to cover the food, mark it, and leave these guys alone. So I really have no way of knowing exactly what's going on underneath all of this. I have an idea, but the whole idea of the experiment is that we're not fluffing this one and then gauging the difference. So that's our update, and we will see how these guys do with the feeding. So thanks for joining me, and we'll see you with our next update.